Hi folks, I thought I'd also do an electrical tutorial for you on the basic tools that you need if you're going to do any kind of electrical work in your home. This is just what I have. You may vary to some extent. I've found that this is what works for me. There are many different brands of hand tools out there that you can use. You can sometimes get very specialized electrician's tools if you want to spend the money for it. That's fine, but you don't need the top quality stuff in order to do the work, especially if you're only doing repairs now and then. If you're doing extensive remodeling, you might want to invest in a little bit better ones just because you're going to be using them quite a bit and you want to make sure that they hold up to your needs. So let's just walk through the tools that I have in my tool pouch here, and I'll give you a quick idea of how they get used for doing electrical work. We start here first with our wire that we did in our last tutorial. This was the 12-2 Romex. Now as you can see, there's this outer jacket on here, and the thing of it is, in order to get at the inner wires, you've got to get that out. You can take a utility knife and slice that, but you have to be a little careful because you don't want to cut the inside insulation there, because you're not going to strip that all the way off like you are the outer jacket. You want this back far enough so it's not in your way inside a receptacle box or a switch box, wherever. You want to strip that off so that's out of your way, but you don't want to damage any of it inside the box. So what they do is they make this little gadget here. This is called a jacket stripper. This one is T-shaped. I've seen them J-shaped. They're not very expensive. Basically, it's just a piece of steel, and on the inside you can see there's a little blade there, not very sharp. All that you do with that is you slide it over the end of your wire. Now granted, this wouldn't be split as much as I have it here. You just slide it over the end of your wire like that, and when you pull on it, that little blade cuts right in the middle. Oh, excuse me for bumping the camera. Cuts right in the middle, and then it pulls it back. You don't have to worry about this little blade cutting the inside insulation because it's right in the middle where your bare ground is. So that's usually the first step. A tool that you're going to use throughout various stages of electric wiring is a set of diagonal cutting pliers. Basically, and you can see it's rubber handled. All your electrical tools should be rubber handled just for safety's sake, so that it's insulated. And this is just you're going to use this for all kinds of cutting. Now what I'll do here is I'll show you. You can just cut your jacket off. That's out of your way then. So that we'll use various places. Now another tool that you're going to need, oh, I forgot to cut the paper off too. This extra paper insulation in there you don't need. Another tool that's a bit more specialized for cutting wire is a wire strippers. Now you've got to get some of this insulation off these wires if you're going to wrap it around a screw for a switch receptacle, or put it in the stab locks like I showed you, or else just make a junction, a splice of wires that are twisted together. So they make this little tool. You can see it's got teeth on the top there, called the wire strippers, and if you notice there are different size holes, and that's designed to deal with different gauge wire. They're stamped right on it. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but they're stamped right on there. Now I know this is 12 gauge wire, so I look on here, where's my 12? And then I just put the wire in the slot like that, and there, it's removed. No damage, no problem. This particular brand of strippers is from Klein Tools. They're probably the premier electrical tool company. I don't have many Klein tools because they're relatively expensive, but this is one that you're going to use quite a bit, so I wanted something that was going to hold up for me. It has a couple other little applications that you can use it for. It's got a little bit of a pliers tip on there. You can also use these little holes to bend wire. Let's say you want to make a loop on your ground here. You can just stick it through the hole like that and bend it, and then there you got a hook, for wrapping around a screw. So it's a good practical tool to have. It's a whole lot simpler than simply trying to take a pocket knife or utility knife and shaving off this insulation. It works a lot faster. Another tool that you're definitely going to use doing electric work is a needle nose pliers. And again, a lot of the application with that will be to bend your wire like this to make your hooks to put around screws. The needle nose is a very good tool to have. It also, if you see down in here, it has a little cutting feature, a cutting blade too, so you can use it for, you don't have to switch to use your diagonal cutting pliers. If you just have one small cut to make, it'll cut the wire for you. Also, it's got a gripping feature here on the back that works a bit like a pliers, not too well, but you could use it in certain applications if you needed it. Again, rubber handle for protection, insulation protection, and they do make different size of these. I forget if this is an 8-inch, I think is what that is, and that's practical size for doing electric work. Another essential pliers to have is a lineman's pliers. Now this one has the tapered nose. You can get lineman's pliers with a big square head on. They're much stronger for twisting wire. I prefer the tapered head because when you're dealing with copper electric wire, this is sufficient strength. It's not as bulky, and you can get into tighter spaces if you need it. Again, it also has a cutting blade on, like a wire cutters on there. And what I use this primarily for is if I'm going to be tying two wires together. In order to make a wire splice, you want to wrap two wires together and you twist them. You don't want to just hand twist them. This will make a good tight twist that then you can put a wire nut on. And you'll see me using that at some point, I'm sure too, but these are invaluable for doing that kind of joining of wire together. You get the two heads together here of a piece of wire perhaps, and you just twist them until they're together. I won't try to do that with this piece, but that's a very important tool to have, a lineman's pliers. Another tool that I will use from time to time is this crimping tool. When you're putting together pieces of ground wire, you're splicing them together. You can just wrap them together and then twist them with your lineman's pliers and then put a wire nut on. But a simpler thing to do is to just twist them together and slide a little crimp cap. Let's see if I have one in here. A little crimp cap, a brass or copper brass crimp cap here. That slides over the wire. And with this tool, if you notice here, the crimp cap will fit right in there. If I squeeze this down, that will pinch it tight. So that will make a permanent connection with your wires. They can't then come apart because they're held in by the force of the crimped cap there. I have seen an alternate way of doing wiring that they don't use regular plastic wire nuts. They will twist the wires, put this crimp on, and then there's a plastic snap-on that goes over the top of this. Don't know how much that's used anymore, but that is another way to do it. But I just use this typically for ground wires. You will need some screwdrivers when you're doing electric work, of course. Basically a slotted and a Phillips. And if you notice here, what I've done is I've wrapped them with electrical tape. You can buy specialty screwdrivers for electric work that are coated in plastic insulation. You'll pay quite a bit more for them than a regular screwdriver. I just make sure that I have a screwdriver that has a plastic handle on it. And I'll often, this one is the one I use the most, this little long slotted screwdriver. So not only do I wrap it all the way to there, I also wrap the handle so that should I ever have to work hot, or if I get into a situation where I'm not sure if the circuit is on or not. That way I can use my screwdriver without fear of getting a shock, and that's why I have the the plastic electrical tape wrapped all the way up to near the tip. That way I'm not accidentally grabbing hold of the shaft of the screwdriver and getting a shock. Again, I don't ever recommend working hot if you can help it, but should you ever be in that situation, you at least need good insulation on your screwdrivers. Or if you have the money to invest in a specialty set of electrician screwdrivers that are kind of dipped in plastic and just the very, very tips are exposed, hey, you're safe that way then too. Another tool that I often use in doing remodeling work and putting in new boxes is just the basic drywall saw. That just cuts through the drywall to put a wall box in. I'll use it to cut plaster and lath as well. I have a little more control with this than I do a reciprocating saw. It takes a little more strength, of course, but it works well to cut out holes in walls that you may need to get electric boxes in, or holes to fish wires through. So I wouldn't be